Hi, and welcome to A Place Called Through. We're broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. Today we have with our guest, Miss Laura Goodwin, who's going to share her story of where there is hope. And we talk about a mission of hope. That is the mission of WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network and A Place Called Through, where I am your host, Patricia Wade Going. We share these stories of mission of hope to help empower and encourage you. And we do so globally. But it's only done because of your giving, your charitable giving helps us to travel and share this message worldwide. So we ask you today, please consider to continue giving if you're already doing so. And if you'd like to help us with this mission of hope, please do so by going to WYTV7.org and make your charitable donation. Help us continue on this mission of hope. Today, again, we have with us Ms. Laura Goodwin, who's going to share with us what it means to be a victim and to survive being a victim of domestic abuse, domestic violence. Welcome, Ms. Laura Goodwin, to A Place Called Through.
Thank you. I'm actually in the process of changing my name back to my maiden name, which is Mosley, just to distance myself from my former abuser. But I really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. And we understand that, being a victim and overcoming this, not everybody is blessed to really overcome this. And so, as you stated, you're in that process of changing your name back to your maiden name. And it's a process for healing. It's a time where things have to change in your life. And so you're one of those blessed people that are allowed to make these changes. But I want to share with everybody something that I found out that says, according to a study done by the Centers for Disease and Control, that nearly 3 in every 10 women, which equals about 32 million women and 10 men in the United States, have experienced domestic violence, be it in the form of rape, physical violence, stalking by an intimate partner, rather. And it's been reported at least measured impacts. And that could be, just the violence effect. The effects of domestic violence are also physically, but there are also mental effects that have been noticed by this. And as you said, part of the effect on you now is changing back to who you were in name. So talk to us about, when did this start for you as being a victim?
Well, we found out I met my former husband and abuser when I was 18 and he was 20. We got married at 19 and 21. What sped up that process is we found out we were going to have a baby. So we went ahead and got married. And honestly, things were okay. I mean, we were young and broke and in love and we struggled. It honestly didn't start happening until we had to move in with his mom. And our baby was then 18 months old. He started getting physical and that devastated me. I said something he didn't like and it escalated from there. And up to that point, I mean, young married couples argue, you're young and stupid, you have things that you say and you don't really mean. So nothing really sat in my mind up until that point. He shoved me up against a wall because I said something I shouldn't have, or so he thought, and bruised my breast. And I was just completely devastated. And it seems like it escalated from there. I mean, the gaps were wider at that point between episodes. Usually it was yelling or belittling, but then, it was somewhat physical, but always never in front of our child or never in front of his mother. So it was just between him and me. And then he made me start feeling like I was crazy because I knew that was not acceptable. My mother and father never acted like that. I never saw that in my home. I mean, they'd have disagreements, but that never was acceptable. So I didn't know what to do at that point. We ended up being married a total of 26 years before the divorce. Prior to meeting him in high school, I was raped, but I kind of pushed that away, kind of hid that in my subconscious. So I always wondered if maybe my low self-esteem from that caused I don't know if it caused him to pick me or me to accept him. Not really sure, but as we went on, you know, I mean, living life, I went to school, I got a degree, I got a job, made sure my child was taken care of, my husband was taken care of. As we went on, found out I was pregnant with my second child. And as life is occurring, things amp up for a while and then they de-escalate for a while, which is part of the cycle of violence. Didn't know that until recently, but we always, he always had this way of trying to make up, oh, he's so sorry. And as a person that was in love with her husband, you want to believe that that's really true. He's going to change. He's oh so sorry. But it just kept occurring.
But isn't
And
that also part of what it is, the in domestic violence, so, sadly, is that what happens, to that person that's being abused, the person that's doing this to you puts you to a place where your self-esteem has been beaten down, to that point that, and I've heard, that they tell you, nobody wants you, you're never going to be able to do anything if you leave me. And I think that's part of the fear factor that a lot of people have about, actually walking away from these situations because of the mental abuse, not just physically, but being physically abused. There's also that part that is mentally, that's really devastating to you because now you've gotten into a situation, and for some often even wondering, okay, where can I go? What can I do? How do I do this? Because you've become so dependent on that person. Let's back up if we can for a few minutes. You talked about that you had been raped earlier. So, and you mentioned that maybe this might have contributed, I'm sure, to some of your emotional status at this point coming into this type of relationship. And then you moved in, with a family person. So all that had to be horrific because this obviously was not the norm, for you. So at the time that you were raped, did you reach out to anybody? Was this just something that you kept to yourself and continued into relationships with?
Honestly, I was 16 years old. I didn't tell anybody. I never told my parents until after my current abuser and I were no more. Because I had all of this stuff built up. I had to tell my parents. No, it happened while I was in high school. The boy was older. He was a senior. I was a sophomore. So I didn't tell anybody. In fact, I didn't date a whole lot in high school just because he made it seem like I wanted what he did to me, which was not the case. I had initially said, no, I'm not ready. And he got mad and tried to drive me back home and then drove somewhere way the heck out there. And just, that's where that episode happened. So in order to go forward, I became like the best student I could be and kept my nose in a book and did school activities. And I didn't tell anybody. In fact, so much so that I kind of blocked it out. So I didn't meet my abuser until after, well, I met him my senior year, but I didn't start dating him until after I graduated from high school. And I did that secretly so my parents wouldn't know, because I think subconsciously I knew they weren't going to approve of him.
But that is also, part of the pattern that happens, again, as we just talked about, how your self-esteem comes into play with this, because you're being abused and you hide it. You don't want anybody to know because when you're ashamed of it, you feel powerless in some situations. And to let other people know that I'm in this situation because you've got friends and family looking at you like, okay, well, she's going to be this and she's going to do this. But that solid part inside is still there because you weren't able to release it. And especially at the age of 16, when you didn't feel that comfortable, that you can share this with your parents. And so you've moved on and you've gotten into relationships, and here we go. Here comes the big one,
Exactly.
you figured, okay, well, I've gotten over this one and now here we go. And you're feeling defenseless all over again.
Right.
So,
And it started out, I mean, he told me everything I wanted to hear.
Of course.
I thought our, morals lined up. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case, as I discovered as I, continue to stay married to him. We separated probably a total of 5 times before the final incident. Um, and I think I had gotten to the part where I had my second child. I wanted to go back to school. My path before I met him was I was going to graduate college. I was going to be a journalist, and I changed that a little bit. I turned that into, I wanted to my own business. And um, he was okay with that. But then again, he used my education to beat me with it mentally. He was like, if I did something dumb, or I guess just not thinking, because your thoughts are not quite as rigid and strong when you're in abuse, then he'd
Mhm.
go, "You have a master's degree, really? You should be better than that." Not when you're being, mentally abused. You don't know which way is up some days. So, as we, continue to be married, I went to my, I'm Catholic. I was born and raised Catholic, and I went to my church and was told that I needed to pray and I needed to go back and be the best wife I could be. And then he would be the best husband he could be. And clearly, the Catholic Church does not understand what abuse is. I did eventually talk to a priest that said I was unevenly yoked, which is probably the best thing I've heard. But, all the praying in the world doesn't make that abuser change, even though we wished that it would. We prayed that it would. They I at one point thought that he was just mentally ill, did not know what he was doing. My prognosis now is they know exactly what they're doing. They can turn it on and turn it off exactly for whomever they want to see. And, all this happened behind closed doors. Meanwhile, I had to be my normal outgoing self. I mean, I had, job goals that I wanted to achieve, which would be further the success of my family, and educational goals and things. So after the fact, lots of people were like, "Oh, I had no idea you're going through that." Well, that's exactly what I wanted. I did not want you to know that I was going through this.
Mhm.
It's not
And
something you want to
that's a
advertise.
typical thing that you don't want anybody. That's why,
Right.
it's a silent thing. But people that are experiencing it just is such a crisis now. It's really on the rise, even more so now, because of COVID. So
Right.
people are really, really having to experience this more. But we would really want to encourage anybody that's in that situation. If you know of somebody, get some help. Call
Yep.
911. You have the national hotline for domestic violence, and that number is 800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. Get help. Help is available. Tell somebody what you're going through. Because we've also noted by the Center for Control and Disease, they're saying that domestic violence can be mental, as you've already stated, physically, economically, because you become to depend on these people, or it's in sexual nature. Here we go.
Mhm.
Incidents are rarely isolated, but they do happen, and usually they escalate frequently and really severely. Domestic abuse may culminate in serious physical injury, and sometimes it can lead to death. So we encourage you, get that help. Call 911. Remember the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number again is 800-799-7233. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back talking to Ms. Laura Goodwin, where there is hope. Domestic violence, domestic abuse. Get the help. Stay back. Stay with us. We'll be there shortly.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools, all designed for you, all designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live, and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WYTV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WYTV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again.
To a place called Through, broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. I am your host, Patricia Wade Goings, the host of A Place Called Through. We're talking today with Miss Laura Goodwin, who's sharing her story, Where There Is Hope, Surviving Domestic Violence, Being Abused, been in a relationship, remarried, has wonderful children now, but as a survivor, she still remembers those days. The emotional side of it is life lasting, actually. It doesn't go away. The physical part, many people have even died from being victims of domestic violence. So today we want to continue sharing this story with you, our listeners and our viewers, from Miss Laura Goodwin, Mosley, I'm sorry. She's actually done something. She has gone back to her maiden name. She's changing herself. She's getting her together. Well-educated, has master's degrees. She's working on herself, and proudly so, because many people who have been victims of domestic violence do not do that. They stay in those situations for fear of leaving, also the fear of being told, nobody wants you. You will never be anything. You can't do it without me. So Ms. Mosley has said, it stops here. I moved on. So we're going to go back and talk with Ms. Laura today. Continuing in her story, she's gotten married, has 3 children, and she's moving on. So take us to this place now, of how you really got to this point that you said, enough is enough. I'm going to be me.
Well, we eventually had a 3rd child, and thought it was weird. I had, was changing birth control pills, and that happened just because I was starting into perimenopause. So, he accused me of trying to trap him, which I thought was weird because I was already married to him, but okay. So we had our 3rd baby, and he tortured me through that whole pregnancy, mainly mental, a little physical. I noticed our youngest was a little different. Fast forward, he is on the autism spectrum. So the way that he acted, his thought processes, behaviors, setbacks, they were all different from my other 2. Of course, his dad was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. Well, autism doesn't mean there's something wrong with the child. It just means that they have different thought processes. They process things differently. So while that's going on, it's just getting worse. The physical, usually it was always more mental. He went through financial to try and control me. Because I would get, he would lose jobs because of his horrible attitude, and I would have to take on more jobs. I'd have a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. And I think that kind of scared him. So he started doing like a financial abuse, withholding money from me, stealing money, sabotaging bills. It's mind-boggling to think that that's a type of abuse, but it is. And he spiritually abused me so much that I stopped going to church. I stopped taking my children to church, which I should not have, but being Catholic, he wanted to allude to, my kids started going through the sacraments and wanted to be altar servers, and he wanted to allude to priests doing things that they shouldn't. And I just didn't want the drama. And that's usually when I started shutting down. I'd shut down one thing because I didn't want the drama. I'd shut down another thing. I didn't want to make him mad, didn't want the drama. So, the physical just started getting worse because I would shut down mentally. I mean, you get whipped to a point where you're just like a shell of a person. And if you don't do what they want you to do, if you don't say what they want you to say, then it gets physical because that elicits a response. They have to have that interaction, that response. Um, it came to the point I didn't dress nicely enough. I didn't wear makeup all the time. And, I would do these things and then it was something else. And I did find comfort in food. So I gained weight. It was just easier to stay fat because when I started having health issues and I'd have to lose weight, then, oh, I'm getting beautiful and sexy for somebody else. I'm cheating. Don't know how many times I was accused of that. Which I now find out that is an admission on their part, because they could do what they wanted, but they didn't want you to do what they were doing. So, I did end up leaving him in 2011. I had to get a restraining order. He got very physical and violent, all because I wouldn't go on vacation with him. I was afraid he was going to take me somewhere and kill me. And did I tell him that? No, I just didn't want to go on vacation. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to leave the kids. We eventually got back together. And the final time was in 2017. The day prior, he accused me of cheating. He made me so physically sick. I stayed home from work. I went to the doctor, and when I got back, he confronted me again about cheating, and shot at me with a gun. And hopefully never, ever, it missed me by quite a bit, but when you're in proximity and somebody has a gun pointed at you and they shoot it near you, it's very loud. So, I still live in my house and it still has a bullet buried in the wall. So, things of that nature, that changes you. The very next day, we were barbecuing outside, and all throughout our marriage, he's been an alcoholic, closet alcoholic. But in the last few years, just was an open drinker, wanted to go to the bar all the time, wanted me to come with him sometimes, sometimes not. And he still is, unfortunately. But the day that the main incident occurred, he was drunk. He was grilling. I didn't do something, or my friend called to see if I was okay. She kind of knew what he was, like. He took the phone from me and yelled at her, said that, maybe he needed to be with her instead of me, and that disgusted her. So he broke my phone and threw it, and then proceeded to get into a physical altercation with me where he beat me in front of my then 10-year-old son and my middle child.
So you said at one point you were living with his mother.
Yeah,
Y'all were staying with her.
we did.
What was
we
his
did get
family
our own
like? What
home.
kind of family background did he have?
Well, his mother was abused by his father.
The pattern.
So yeah, and she and I became pretty good friends, but there towards the end, she was starting to have some health issues mentally. Dementia, I think, was starting to set in. So she'd often take his side because that was her younger child. That was her youngest child. That was her baby. She had lost her middle child. So I think she felt like she needed to protect him. And that kind of hurt my feelings. But being a mother, I kind of get that too. As far as you want to make sure your child's okay. But I guess I thought she'd kind of sympathize more with me because she'd been through what I went through.
That would be the obvious thing, to sympathize with you. But again, she took the side of him, knowing that it was wrong and what she had already been through herself.
Yeah,
so she chose to take the lesser. The effect on this one, you said that you have 3 children. How has this been effective on your children?
I really think it messes with their thought processes. I always tried to make sure that they were well cared for and well adjusted. And I did a lot of activities with them, and I've always been involved in their school and things like that. So I think it really has has kind of maladjusted their thought processes. So,
And what is your relationship with your family members?
oh, I have a
Because
very
now they know you've been in this.
right. I have a very good relationship. I have always had a good relationship. I just hid it just because I didn't want my parents to be disappointed. Of course, they were like, "Well, we want you to be safe." Yes, I mean, ideally, you want to marry once, but if he's making it unsafe, no, we don't. My dad said you could have ended up dead, and he's right. I could have. Um, so I understand that. You want your children alive and well and safe versus, in any sort of horrible situation they might find themselves in. Um, so yeah, I have an excellent relationship with my parents and my brothers and sisters, and
That's good because they're your support systems, and
they are, and they've been supportive. They're super supportive.
and it's been reported that it's really important to know that the effects of domestic violence can be overwhelming, as you already stated. To go through this, it is common for someone in an abusive relationship to not even recall the aspects of their personality before being abused, especially if they have been exposed to violence for extended period of times. It's also noted that recovery from the exposure to domestic violence is possible. And although it requires addressing the painful realities, it also entails discovering new inner strengths, a process that needs time, space, and safely to begin. Domestic violence affects one's thoughts, your feelings, and behaviors, and can significantly impact one's mental stability, increased anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression symptoms, which are commonly observed among survivors of domestic violence. And we want to encourage anybody that is going through this situation again to reach out for help. Call someone, call a family member, call 911, and remember the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available to you 24 hours at 800-799-7233. Stay safe. Ms. Mosley, we're running out of time, so I want you to give some words of encouragement to somebody that may be going through this from your situation. How would you encourage somebody that sadly may be still in it and may not want to leave or afraid to leave?
Mm-hmm. A lot of victims don't have a support network because the abuser isolates them so much. I mean, reaching out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline is a good first step. A lot of doctors' offices, you have to go into your appointment by yourself. You can discuss that with your professional. I mean, anytime anybody is going through that, they need to be able to make sure that they're safe, but you have to start somewhere and you have to keep picking away at it, even if it's a little bit at a time. My advice to people that are being domestically abused: mental abuse is horrible. Physical abuse is horrible. I know it heals, but then it can crop up later, which a lot of people don't realize. I know I was strangled, and I know when people put hands on throat, a lot of people think it's choking, it's strangling. I've been strangled. I've been physically abused to the point where I've partially lost hearing. I have a traumatic brain injury. So my thought processes aren't as strong as they used to be. So anytime that you have anything physical happen, definitely get that checked out. I have ribs that have been broken that have never healed properly, and I can tell you when it's going to rain. So those things can crop up and cause problems later. So definitely get that checked out. And then when you're getting that checked out, say, look, this was because of domestic abuse. I was abused. And don't let your significant other in there with you, and don't let them convince you otherwise. You have to let people know in your own way. But those are the two best things that a victim can do to kind of get that started. And don't let your abuser tell you that nobody will want you, nobody will help you. There's a lot of resources out there, and you have to want you over anybody else.
And I do believe that is part of the healing process, that you have to want to be healed. You have to commit to yourself for your healing, but there is a higher power that you must also know too, that will help you get through it. And obviously we're thankful that he has helped you through those processes of healing. And you still, because you have so many now physical challenges that you're dealing with, but you're still in that healing process. So we
Yes.
want to still commend you for, you're going through, but you're helping someone else get through. And that's our mission of hope here on A Place Called Through in WYTV7. It is a mission of hope to help someone else get through. So we just thank you for being our guest today at A Place Called Through. We wish you the best in all your endeavors, to you and your children and your family. And we just, again, our heart cries out to you for all that you have gone through. You truly have been in a place called through. But as I like to say, if you have not gone through, you won't be able to get through. So you have to go through in order to get through. But we, again, want to thank you for being our guest here on A Place Called Through. Do you have any information that you want to share with them? If someone wants to reach out to you, how can they connect to you for support or any help? And I want to also give that 800 number again, and it is 800-799-7233, Domestic Violence National Hotline, 911. Call a shelter, get the help. Again, if you have any information that you'd like to share, please share so at this time.
I do some advocacy on my own just to help myself heal. I have an inspirational Facebook page. It's called the DV, as in domestic violence, the DV Walking Wounded. I have a blog that unfortunately I've neglected for a little bit, but I need to get back on that. It is also called The Walking Wounded. And I'm trying to get into podcasting, trying to set that up. So I'm just trying to get that information out to people because they need to know and they need to have information to plan in order to help themselves be safe and get through it.
Well, we thank you again for being our guest and keep us informed of where you are and what you're doing. Be glad to share it with our listeners and our viewers. Again, I've been your host, Patricia Wade Goings, from A Place Called Through, broadcasting live from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, where we share the story of Mission of Hope, where there is hope. And you've heard it from Miss Mosley, who is a survivor of domestic violence. So, like we said in the beginning, we can only do this with your charitable donation. So won't you consider giving a donation? Doesn't have to be $1 million, but we'll take it if you have it. $1, $2, $5, we take it. So to help us continue this globally, we ask that you do consider giving to us at WYTV7.org. Again, I am your host, Patricia Wade Goings, and if you'd like to be my guest, you may do so by reaching out to me in area code of 843-608-9744, by email at pgoingswp@gmail.com. And you can find me on Facebook, A Place Called Through, at Willpower, The Call to Rise Above. I am the author of Willpower, The Call to Rise Above. That book is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So we look forward to your continued support. See you next time here on A Place Called Through.
Faith and hope. Do you find yourself feeling anxious or sick and tired too often? Did you know that by living in a clean home or having a clean office, your energy improves as well as your mood? It's time to shake things up and make things happen. Call Faith and Hope Cleaning Services and let husband and wife team Kevin and Larissa give you the peaceful, relaxing home or office that invites and revitalizes your efforts with energy.